Well, well. We are back for another. We're going to go live over multiple streams, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining in and actually responding. It's been fantastic. The live streams have been a little bit interesting for us, and I'll give you the red hot tip today is going to be very interesting. Not only have we got a special guest, we've had a little bit of a technical hiccup trying to figure this out, and this will be our first effort at going like live to someone else. And that was the whole point of doing the live stream, was that we could actually use the medium to speak to other people and to get more information and just see what else is going on around there for people that maybe are too busy, can't come in and do a podcast, or they're traveling around the world, or they'll be in a different continent or a different country. So we're going to get on with it and see how we go. And I must admit, you can't tell this, but I can definitely hear myself a couple of times in the ear, but that's the only way I can hear Vin. So some of you might not know Vin, but Vin, there's among other things, he's an international keynote speaker. He's been doing training courses to help people with with their public speaking, their development, how they present. And that's how I got to meet Vin a long time ago. And it all started back a long time back at a Foodland conference, actually, when I heard this guest speaker come up, spiky hair, and I thought, that guy's very good, very engaging. And I went up to him afterwards and said, I really loved what you're doing. And he said, why don't we catch up for a coffee? I was like, okay. So naturally, I did follow that up and evidently met Vin, and now we're friends. And I'm happy to say Vin has definitely changed the way that I present and the way that I handle myself in the way that we do public speaking, or when we're doing stuff on video, on TV, or live, which we haven't had before. So I've asked Vin if he could be our first guinea pig onto the show. And for some of you that don't know him, we're going to play a bit of a clip of some of his content, and he's on all mediums. So if you do want to see that, there'll be plenty of links there for you to follow all of his content. But I think if we can play the clip, Matt, and see how we go with that.
It's important for us to share ideas, but it's also important for us to listen. The way we show them that we're engaged, body language-wise, is like this. This body language actually helps you listen better. It helps you become more present. It just shows I'm engaged. It shows I'm listening. Whereas most people, they shoot back with an answer straight away. But most people, when they're communicating, they just want to be heard. So if you take a moment, fall into this, it will make them feel heard. It helps you become more influential. Computer.
Well, there you have. And if you haven't met Vin, you might recognize him. And I would love to introduce Vin. And I must admit, it's a bit hair-raising here because I'm not sure how this is going to work. So let's introduce Vinh Giang to the live. Vin.
Hey, JP, how are you, brother?
Yeah, very good, Vin, and thanks for being our first guinea pig. It's the first time we've done this, so I know you're well skilled at this with that beautiful studio in the background. Not quite a car collection, but definitely engaging. And not your first time doing live streams.
Well, it's just funny because the clip you played of me, I have blonde hair now. I don't have blonde hair, so it's the same guy, just different hair color.
Yeah, I must admit, when I first met you, really spiky hair, and now you've gone to the more conservative dad look. Is that right?
Yeah. My mum said to me, "You can't give me a degree. Can you at least give me black hair and a more conservative hairstyle?" So I was like, you know what, Mum? Sure, fine.
Oh, well, you got to love your mum, and I think she would have been disappointed. You're not a doctor.
Yeah.
But hey, a magician started you off, and I guess you want to give people your elevator speech of who you are.
Yeah, well, look, if I had to share who I am in a nutshell, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a part keynote speaker, as you've heard, and I spend the majority of my time teaching communication skills. So I teach public speaking, I teach the art of storytelling, body language, teaching people how to connect. And I'm also part magician. So I'm a full-blown mixed breed.
So I have seen a few magic tricks from you in the past, and you are very good at that. Vin, are you doing magic anymore?
No, I still use magic as a metaphor when I run my classes. I think it's a way to make the medicine taste good for adults. But I don't, in my free time, you won't find me sitting in my room practicing with a pack of the cards. Those days are long gone, JP. I now just kind of focus more on the teaching side.
Well, I've been watching a lot of your content. You've really stepped up your game on multiple levels. And the pieces of content that you're coming out with are all pieces that have absolutely helped me, especially with my public speaking and my presentating skills. When you first started out on this, and let's face it, you did travel around the world. I saw you traveling around America. It was quite brutal. You're producing content, and I look at the content you're producing now, and it's just amazing. And I think we want to get into the topic of body language. And in that talk that you talk about the voice pitch, and if you hear someone that just talks like this and they keep that same monotone, that was the first thing that really engaged me, is that if you do use a bit of up and down, it really does engage the audience. How did you get onto that?
A lot of the lessons that I've learned for the world of communication comes from the world of music, right? And the human brain is super interesting, because the moment the brain feels it can predict anything, it disengages. The moment you don't vary your voice, you don't vary your body language, the moment you just become predictable and what you're saying is becoming a bit of a monotone, what happens after that is when people know what's coming next, they disengage. And people often are afraid of a monotone voice, but they don't realize that a monotone voice comes from a monotone body. So when you don't move your body, it doesn't move your voice. And then as a result, your voice sounds more monotone. And that's why body language is important, but also the use of your voice is important. And the key lesson that I think really came through for you there, JP, is variety. So variety in melody, variety in body language. It's the biggest problem is when we get stuck doing the same thing over and over and over again. Even if I use the same hand gesture. So if I just kept using this hand gesture and I didn't vary it at all, what started as being functional now is distracting and non-functional. Do you see how that kind of works? Anything default doesn't serve you.
So when I'm at the desk with JP, I noticed a lot of your content, if not all of it, is standing up in the position that you're doing now, because I think getting that more movement, people don't realize it's happening in front of them, but the movement is what gives people the engagement. And like you said, you just mimicked that movement. Right, when you're doing that, it looks fantastic. But if you did that for a whole half an hour, it would just become monotonous.
Well,
is that a reason why you stand up?
Well, it's again, anything that we stick to as a pattern, then after a while, it just drowns out. Like, I'll give you an example. If I just talk right now with the same rate of speech, the same melody, and I don't move my body and I don't move my face, after a while, everything that I say just becomes a bit of a blur. And the reason why this is a problem is because often people fall victim to the knowledge curse. When you know something really well, JP, and you live a life where you have the same conversations every day because you're in the world of service, because you repeat the same thing every day, you know it inside out. So then when you have those discussions and communications with new customers, you forget it's their first time hearing it. So because you know it inside out, like the back of your hand, you start to just robotically regurgitate the information without any focus on delivery. Then after a while, it just becomes mumbo jumbo to people.
Is there 2 or 3 key things that you could give away or let someone know in regards to presenting?
Look, I would say the first thing is to build self-awareness. I think the most important thing, and I made you do this when we were working together, is record a 5-minute video of yourself. All right, just do it on your phone and just talk about anything you want. You can talk about a holiday you want to go on, your favorite food, whatever you like. It has to be improvised. So 5 minutes, full-blown 5 minutes. Then after that, you watch and review the video in 3 different ways. The first time, when you watch back the video, turn the audio all the way up, press play, turn your phone around, and then just listen to yourself and take notes on your voice. You're doing what's known as an auditory review. How does your voice sound? Do you like the melody? Is there melody in your voice? How's the volume? How's your rate of speech? Take notes, build self-awareness on the auditory component. The second time you review it, now put your phone on mute, press play, and then just look at yourself. And at this point, now you're just reviewing your body language, right? So if you were standing while you're doing this, are you just moving around for no particular reason? And are you only engaging in one particular hand gesture? And if that's the case, then it means you need to build your gesture vocabulary. You need to increase the number of gestures you have access to make you more visually appealing and engaging, right? So that's a visual audit. And then after that, you don't listen and you don't watch it. The third time you review it, get the video transcribed. So transcribe it. And then once you get it transcribed, now you go through your transcription and look for all the non-words and filler words that you use, meaning the sounds we make to fill the silence, and then the words we use to fill the silence. And, so, like, do you know what I mean? Just going through this review process once, it builds a lot of self-awareness, and then you can kind of self-coach yourself on the things you want to improve. It's a great starting point.
It's pretty frightening actually doing that process. And
yeah, it is.
When you listen to yourself, you sit there and go, oh no. Like, I remember the first time you made me do this. I was like, wow, I'm that annoying. Like, no. And I was thinking, okay, here I am. To me, I'm thinking, hang on, I sound all right. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's the self-awareness part that I think most people lack. Would you think it's the self-awareness part? I mean, you're saying it's the crucial part of what you're saying. I believe it is the number one thing in regards to public speaking.
Well, look, it's everything. And it's a great first step. And it's the most excruciating first step. Because most people will look at the video and they listen to themselves and they think, that's not how I sound. That's not how I look. And it's, yes, that's how you look and that's how you sound to other people. You know, that's just reality. And until we face that reality and do the hard work, if we don't know how we come across to others, how can we then start to work on ourselves so that we can better ourselves to be able to have more impact and have more influence? It starts with you doing the work. And most people won't do this, JP. But like when you did it, I remember when I did this review for you and you watched it back, I remember you texted me straight away and you loved it because you immediately learned new things that you could do to improve.
Yeah, and the voice is one of them. Body language. So, you know, no matter how you've had a good day or a bad day, it's really hard to convince your body otherwise. And when you talk about the movement and the gestures, like I know for me, when I was doing talks, that my phone was something that I had as a pacifier, a safety device, like a dummy. That was my security, whether I looked at it or not. And you made the observation that, like, are you even reading what's on that phone? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. But when I go back and look at that footage, I'm actually not looking at the phone. I've known the content, but it's there as security. So does body language have a lot to play with that, with, you know, tricking your mind?
Well, look, the use of body language and the reason we want access to our hands and not have phones in our hands, for example, is because your body language supports the things that you say, right? And again, for those watching right now, I just use the gesture. It supports the things that you say. So it's just like that is an extra gesture for supporting, right? And you compare that versus body language supports the things that you say. It's a complete difference. And what it does is it helps make information more digestible for people. And it helps make the information more engaging. And if you want to be more influential, the communication with you needs to be easily understood, digestible, and then also needs to be engaging. If it's none of those things, then how are you influential?
And I think it goes back to why people actually watch something to do with the supermarket. We've taken normal things and tried to make them in a digestible way. And it's exactly what you're doing. In fact, you're taking it to the next level. When you see someone on stage walking around, do you think you need to do more than just walk around on stage? Is there any purpose in what you do when you're walking on stage or you're talking at the same time?
When it comes to movement, JP, the golden rule in the world of movement when you're on stage is move with purpose. I mean, I've been to a few of those, motivational kind of events where you've got a lot of motivational speakers, and sometimes you'll find some of them just prowling the stage while they talk, and they're just moving nonstop and they're prowling. And again, the funny thing and the common thread in the world of communication is if you do anything as a default and you repetitively do the same thing over and over and over again, it loses impact and it becomes non-functional. So what you want to do is you just want to move with purpose. So here are some of the reasons why you would move. You can move to illustrate a change in location when you're talking about a story. I lived in Australia, then I moved to the US. That's a reason to move. You can move on stage when you're talking about time. You go, let's go back 10 years ago. And then you can kind of move back to gesture that you're moving back to show that was 10 years ago. You could also move to show sequence. The first thing I'm going to talk about is this. The second thing I'm going to talk about this. And the third. The purpose of all the things I'm doing currently is making my communication more clear, right? The movement adds value to the words. It adds extra value. It supports the words. Whereas if I'm just moving for the sake of moving, there's no value in that. If anything, it clutters the message, and it's called visual clutter. And
so,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. So where's the line between moving with purpose and being distracted for the person talking? Because that's your one point here by, you've got a point, move, then, and it totally makes sense. And that's a big thing of what I changed in the regards to speaking. And that's solely because of you. So thank you for that. But if you could tell someone else how those are the points that you do without being distracting and making sure you move with purpose. I mean, that pretty much sums up.
Yeah. Look,
stage.
And just one of the ways to stop you from moving without purpose. Often the reason why people are pacing back and forth, and I mean the classic one you see all the time is the classic rocking back and forth. And they call this in the world of communication, this is the waltz, right? They kind of just rock back and forth, and then they rock from side to side. The reason we're doing this on stage often is because we're feeling nervous and there's excess amounts of adrenaline in our body. So backstage, if you want to minimize some of that purposeless movement, backstage, just do some star jumps. Get rid of some of that adrenaline. Just do a couple of jumps or a couple of push-ups. Just get rid of the excess adrenaline. That excess adrenaline is what causes some people to shake, and then it causes us to want to move because we just want to get it out of our system. So if you're doing that backstage for a good 30 seconds to a minute, it just starts to get rid of some of that adrenaline, and it stops you from moving in a way that doesn't support what you're saying.
I come back on stage and I'm worn out after doing star jumps, I'll be honest, and that's your fault. So, I mean, I like to take some deep breaths in and out no matter where I am. And I'm a bit nervous. Like, I'm assuming most people are nervous. It's not exactly like natural to walk out on stage with 100 people or 200 or 1,000 or 10,000. So for me, that's definitely worked. We got a question coming through.
Okay.
Let's, I can't read that.
Tegan.
Tegan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Okay, well, I can see it. And Tegan says,
can you read it, Vin? I can't see it.
I'll be your co-star on this one. So Tegan says, can you relate this to assisting with managing staff and getting them to take in important information you need to communicate to them? Okay, I'm not exactly sure which part of the conversation Tegan was referring to there, but again, the core of it is, can you relate this to assisting with managing staff and getting them to take important information you need to communicate to them? Well, look, Tegan, what I'll say is if there's something very important that you're communicating, if you can frame it in a story, that is going to be way more influential. Whereas I think a lot of the times in our lives, when we don't learn storytelling, we tend to just communicate in key tasks, right? It's like, for example, if I was trying to encourage some people or some of my students online to read more books, I could just say, hey, read more books. Or, and don't mind, I hope you don't mind, JP, I can share a quick 30-second story that shows and illustrates the difference, right?
Yeah, go.
Or, so it's that, Tegan, let's first compare, read more books, versus if I said, look, when I was in my mid-20s, I was about $500,000 in debt. And I remember my dad coming over and saying to me, do you know why you failed? I said to my dad, I don't know, you tell me, Dad. And then he says, you don't have any soldiers in your army. And I said, I don't know what the hell that means, Dad. What the hell is this Confucius crap? And then my dad says, look, and he walks over to my bookcase and he grabs a book and he goes, son, when you read a book, the author of that book stands behind you in an army, willing to fight for any battle you call him or her to fight for. The battles you are fighting in business require an army of 200. You've got 5 soldiers. Build your army. Look, the reason I'm telling you this is because as we build our army, as we read more books, it enhances our capacity and we'll be able to achieve more, because often in life, we don't succeed because we just don't know how. It's not because we're not capable, we just don't know how. You should read more, build your army.
And
Right.
I think, Tegan, you might be, depending on, like, if you could tell us what sort of industry you're in, but it's no different than a manager of a supermarket, or talking about whatever we're talking about, whether it's gross profits or wages. You still have to be able to communicate in a way which is engaging, because I think we've all had managers which we don't feel that we've been engaged from, and that's because they're not really practicing these techniques. And there's no doubt, and we've been saying it for a long time, storytelling, whether you're telling an elaborate story about something or whether you're actually talking about things that are changing the way the business is done, whether it's through sales or new lines or wages, they all need to be told in a way that's going to get a better result. And I think what you're saying there is exactly my other grab on that would be, hey, I read this book, I learned this, and this from it, and it was a useful book to me. That would work for me.
Yeah. And look, I think what JP says there is really powerful. Imagine I had incredible music written by Beethoven. If you play that music poorly, will people perceive it to be great music? And the answer is no. So Tegan, you could have the most important information that you need to communicate, but if you don't play the instrument well, meaning you don't communicate in a way that's engaging, then that information is lost.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And you wouldn't want to hear me play any of Beethoven music.
Yeah,
Got
no, I
another
wouldn't either.
question here. I can see the questions there. It's just when they change here. But so how would you, so this is from John Pearl. How would you recommend people practicing differences in tones / pitch?
Look, when it comes to trying to increase your pitch variety, there's something very simple you can do. It's called the siren technique. And the siren technique is when you grab a book and then you read it, but you start reading it with a low pitch. So I'm going to start with a really low pitch. And then after that, I go to the high pitch and I go as high as I can. And don't be afraid to go into the falsetto. Have a bit of fun with it. And if you don't feel silly, you're doing it wrong. And then after that, you go all the way back down again. And then you just go down and up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Do it for 5 minutes. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. But if you do this once every day for 5 minutes, all you're doing is you're stretching your vocal cords, you're allowing them to expand and contract, expand and contract. And then gradually what that does is it strengthens your vocal cords, and then you're more easily able to access the different notes in your voice. And again, if you're not singing and you just want to improve your speaking voice, that's a great way to just increase our vocal range.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can we go to the Alan? Can we go to the Alan question? It's a bit of there's a bit of a statement there. Thanks for the support, Alan. But if I go to the back end of that question, it's basically what's the viewpoint of this when you contribute to communicate, given that most people are still working from home? Mm-hmm. How do you use these techniques when you're not actually in person?
Look, the main difference with virtual communication is a few things. The first thing is you've got to understand the importance of distance, and they call that the study of proxemics. And proxemics is the study of distance. Now, right now, there's 3 types of spaces. Let me explain to them first. This right now, this is called the intimate space. This is the space you would share with your husband or your wife. Okay, so this is the intimate space. A lot of the people, when they go on Zoom calls, sometimes they just, "Hi everyone, it's good to see you." This is too close. It makes everyone feel super uncomfortable. So what that is, that is 1 arm's length. You want to be at least 1 arm's length away. And when you're 1 arm's length away, this is now known as the personal space, right? So with personal space, when you're in person and someone's within your personal space, that's a little bit uncomfortable. However, when it comes to online communication, this personal space is perfect. So you want to make sure you're not too close, first of all, to the camera. You want to be just about an arm's reach away. So an arm's reach away, this is perfect.
Can we call that the Bruce Lee distance?
Yeah, I like it. Now, the reason why that's important, the reason why this is important, you want to be at least an arm's reach away, is because when you're about this distant away, people can see your hands.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it means you can use hand gestures when you're communicating virtually. It doesn't mean you shouldn't use them. Of course, you should use them, because the more of your screen that you take up when you're communicating virtually, the more presence people perceive you to have.
Yeah.
Whereas if I don't use my hands at all, and I don't move my body at all, and I don't really move my face, and people just endure bloody hours of this online, it's exhausting for people. It's exhausting. So that's the first thing. Personal space, about an arm's length away. Second thing, eye contact. Make sure you're looking at the camera. Until they've improved technology, unfortunately for now, if we want to engage others, this is the rule I follow. When I'm talking, I look at the camera 100% of the time. When I'm listening to other people, I look at the camera 80% of the time, and then I sneak little glimpses at JP to just ensure that he's still engaged, right? That he's still listening.
It's hard. Like in this setup we've got here, we've got a camera which is the right length, and then right behind that is where I can see you.
Oh, that's good.
So all the feedback that we've got from here, that is, I'm used to you looking straight down the camera, but it is distracting, and I totally understand what you're saying, because I like actually looking down in the camera, because you feel more engaged to it. It's a bit bizarre. It's a black thing that looking this way. So
I've been conditioned to do so. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go to the next question, can we go to the Tom one, because that's about eye contact. Yeah. Tom Clark, here you go. Any tips for improved eye contact in one-on-one or small group conversations?
Oh, I know Tom. Hey, Tom, how are you, brother? Good to hear from you. Thanks for putting a question in. Well, Tom, the thing about eye contact is keep it super simple. When you're speaking to, say, a small group, and you said a small group in this example, just look to someone, finish your thought. After you've finished your thought, then look to the next person, and then start the next thought, finish that thought, and then move to the next person. And in general, it takes about 3 to 5 seconds, because you don't want to just look at one person and talk to one person the entire time. It will freak them out. So what you want to do is just give good coverage in the room, but just finish your thought with someone and then go to the next person.
Yeah, I with my tips on the eye contact, I actually look at people's foreheads, and because looking straight into someone's eyes, it's quite difficult to do.
No, I know. And people can, it depends how close you are to people. If you're further away and you're looking at their forehead, they probably can't tell. But if you're closer to them and you're looking at their forehead, they can tell. And it makes people feel uncomfortable, because they think, shit, is there something on my forehead? Right? And they go, why is he not looking at me? Why is he looking at my forehead? And look, I'll show you all right now, those of you who are online right now. If I just look slightly up, this is me looking at the camera, I'll look slightly above the camera.
Yeah, you look cross-eyed, actually.
Yeah, I know, I do. I don't know. But I'm just looking slightly above, and then I get cross-eyed, and it looks strange. People can tell. You've got to just learn. And this is something that I've learned, is that I look to their left eye, and then I'll just look just to their nose, and then I'll look to their right eye. And I don't move my head with this. I just use my eyes. And when you're doing this for people, it's called a triangle technique. Then what happens is they can't even tell, but at least you're giving your head something to do, so it doesn't freak out that you're looking at the person.
Yeah, 100% agree. I've got another question here from Scott. Is mirroring body language a good idea?
It's a wonderful way to build rapport, only if you do it well, and only if you can do it in a subtle way. Because I've seen people try to do this, and it's called matching and mirroring. It's something that's quite popular in the world of NLP, and I've seen it done extremely poorly before, where you see someone just lean on the table, the other person's like, oh, they're leaning on the table, I should lean on the table too. And the other person folds their arm, oh, I should fold my arms too. And when you do it in a very unnatural way, it comes across as inauthentic, especially if the other person's aware of matching and mirroring, and then you're doing it, and then they're just going to think you're being manipulative, right? My biggest suggestion with that is just do it, but just be subtle about it. You don't have to copy every single body movement. And something more subtle you can do is, yeah, sure, copy a little bit of their body language, but also think about how you can start to adapt and harmonize your voice with theirs. Classic example. If you meet someone who's a fairly big personality, and they're like, oh, hey, JP, good to see you. And if you greet that person with, oh, yeah, hey, great to go, there's less rapport. So you want to match and mirror not only their body language, but their vocal dynamics. And when you can match their vocal dynamics, it's a much more subtle way to be able to build rapport with people quickly. It's like for me, if someone met me in person and they're super shy and quiet, I'm not going to just be super loud and I'll be like, oh, hey, how you going? Oh, great to meet you. you know, and all of a sudden you make them feel more comfortable, rapport is built faster. And here's the trick. Once they're in rapport with you and you start the conversation quietly because they're a little bit shy and nervous, then once you're in rapport, then you slowly bring them out of it, right?
Yeah.
So meet them where they are and take them to where you want to go, but meet them where they are. And it's a more subtle way of matching and mirroring as opposed to just, you know, just.
There was a question about, is there a difference between face-to-face and online? And I think, Vin, you've answered that well. We've run out of time. So like we try to keep them nice and short and sharp, but Vin, you know, you are a wealth of knowledge. Some of the information you give, you've always got something that backs it up as well. Something usually scientific, or you know the exact term for it. And I think after watching all of your content, it's one of the reasons why I love what you do. I've seen you grow, if I can say that, from, you know, doing a talk on stage to being a big time helping people out, a big time advantage for people that actually go to you. I know you've got a workshop coming up. You've got a masterclass coming up in November. Can you give us a bit of a spiel on what that's all about?
Yeah, so I've got two classes. I've got a virtual class, which you can join from anywhere in Australia, or I've also got an in-person class, and that's my favorite thing to do in the world, JP. So November 26th, 27th, if you find yourself in South Australia and you want to join me at the Goodwood Theatre, it's 2 full days where we deep dive into body language, storytelling, vocal mastery, all the good stuff. 2 jam-packed days if you want to come join me. And JP, dude, thank you so much for being such a great supporter of mine. Brother, you've been there since the beginning, and it's amazing to be on this journey with you, and just an amazing friendship has come as a result. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think I've got something caught my eye. Been a bit emotional today, so something's going on. Vin, thanks for being our guinea pig, and for everyone that's listening, I can see there's a bucket load of comments there, and people loving the content. They love you, Vin. Like, there's so much. I can't read it because I won't be looking at the camera, but there's plenty of amazing comments there, and there's lots of support for you, Vin. What you're doing for South Australia, you know, you're training people in America, in massive IT organizations. And I know you have another whole part that we haven't even talked about. We just wanted to talk about something simple. Hopefully we'll get you back on again sometime. But once again, from the team here, and thank you very much for coming on the show. And that is all, folks. I'm sorry, but until next time, see you later.